So welcome back, everybody, to the last session of the morning. Please take a seat. So the evidence for addressing gender-based violence at the level of higher education institutions and research organizations is crystal clear. There are no more excuses for not changing. But when considering how huge these challenges are, where to start when it comes to developing, improving, implementing, or assessing institutional policies? The session that is about to start now will shed the spotlight on UniSAFE's brand new toolkit to address gender-based violence in academia and research, including its key features. We will also hear from institutional representatives on some of their inspiring practices, but also challenges in their policy development and implementation, and will also provide some practical tips and recommendations. Finally, we'll be looking into creating impactful awareness-raising campaigns on gender-based violence. So I'd like now to call Vasia Madesi, who will be moderating this session. Vasia is a consultant at Yellow Window and an experienced professional in EU project management with a specialization in the coordination and support of European research and innovation projects. Since 2014, Vasia has participated in the implementation of several research and innovation projects which cover various sectors, including entrepreneurship, innovation and technology, with a gender plus and inclusion dimension. And she is part of the UniSAFE team. Welcome, Vasia.
Thank you so much, Colette. Good morning, everyone. So, welcome to this panel discussion that will be focused on improving, implementing, and assessing institutional policies. We will have a special emphasis on addressing gender-based violence within academic and research institutions. So today, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment in the pursuit of safer and more inclusive educational and research environments. As we navigate this conversation, we recognize the profound impact that effective policies can have on shaping the culture of institutions and the experiences of every individual within them. Our session today is not just about sharing, but it is also cultivating a collaborative space where ideas are exchanged, challenges are acknowledged, and most importantly, solutions are explored. So for this reason, we will be hosting our esteemed representatives from institutions at the forefront of this journey. And as Colette pointed out, today's spotlight will be on the UniSAFE Toolkit, which is a valuable resource designed to guide institutions in implementing and improving their policies. So from action plans to awareness-raising campaigns, the toolkit presents a comprehensive approach to creating safer spaces for everyone involved in academia. So without further ado, we can begin the conversation with the first speaker, my colleague that we will be co-moderating today's session, Panagiota Polykarpou. Panagiota is a consultant at Yellow Window with a background in business management. Her interests center around gender equality, diversity, and inclusion in organizations. Since 2020, she's been involved in non-profit initiatives in Cyprus, and in 2023, she joined the Executive Academy at Vienna University of Economics and Business for a professional master's in social innovation and management. She's also part of the UniSAFE team. So let's explore the challenges and share inspiring practices. So Panagiota, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Vasia. We already met so starting with the UniSAFE Toolkit. So the UniSAFE Toolkit, as you heard already briefly, has been developed to provide practical guidance and resources to higher education institutions and research organizations in their efforts to address the topic we have been discussing the last few 1.5 days. So it zooms in different aspects that are required for a comprehensive institutional approach, and it's available as a standalone open access website, ensuring its accessibility to all interested parties. For this presentation, I have added some screenshots of the website so to give you an idea of its structure. So to start with its aims and the target audience, it aims to help individuals designing effective policies and implementing concrete measures by providing useful resources addressed to gender equality officers, human resources officers, ombudsperson, individuals that are responsible for the job implementation, the gender equality plan of a university, health and safety officers, heads of departments or units, or anyone involved in addressing this topic, including leadership roles and anyone else interested. So the main elements of the toolkit include information about the 7P framework of which you heard in the last presentations, the guide to implement those 7Ps in practice, and the assessment framework and action plan. Some supporting elements include the glossary and the definitions, another concept that you heard also yesterday from our keynote speaker, the UniSAFE survey results to support you in evidence policy formulation, legal and policy framework on gender-based violence in Europe, inspiring international practices, information generally about the toolkit, the project, and as well as an important navigation page and video that can support the users to go and feel familiar with the website. So some of these elements will be presented now in more detail. And to start with, the 7P practice section provides direct links to the individual pages of the 7Ps, allowing users to access specific information and resources for an effective implementation. So each of these dedicated pages follows the same structure. It first explains the essence of each P, what do we mean when we talk about prevention, protection, and so on. And it offers practical insights into effective approaches for the implementation of each P. And if we zoom in, we will see that each page includes tips and hints, some do's and don'ts that we have been collecting with actionable advice for the users. And the critical elements for applying an intersectional approach is also outlined in each section. Users will also find a repository of inspiring practices in addition to resources and materials for further reading. Now, within the 7P theoretical framework, titled 7P Framework Theorizing Gender-Based Violence Policies, this section provides the theoretical background that we heard before of the 7P framework, and it offers the definitions of the 7Ps and refers to an open access article authored by UniSAFE researchers. So this page also provides a short video presenting the core principles of the 7P model, and in essence, this page equips with the essential knowledge and the conceptual framework necessary to engage with this model. One of the practical outputs of the toolkit is the guide setting up a comprehensive policy framework addressing gender-based violence in academia, a step-by-step guide, which supports those who are at the beginning stages of creating and implementing a policy framework. It elaborates on how to develop an action plan as a roadmap, let's say, providing a clear and detailed plan for how to design, implement, enforce, monitor, and evaluate the plan. Now, the resources and capacity building materials page offers a range of useful resources and materials to support the change agents on their journey to understand and address this topic. So it brings together resources and materials developed by UniSAFE, but as well as external resources that we have been collecting. And this section, or the section of resources, includes tools such as the action plan that I just mentioned, guides, case stories, persona stories, and the set of recommendations presented before. For example, we have a set of real case stories that is intended for those interested to use this as a participatory technique in co-creation workshops or trainings and so on. Another example of resources that will be presented later by my colleague Vasia in more detail, is the step-by-step guide to awareness-raising campaigns on gender-based violence, but you will hear more about it later. So this guide that we're presenting now is the protocol for addressing gender-based violence in research and higher education institutions, and it serves as a comprehensive guide for institutions seeking to create protocols. The guideline includes UniSAFE definition of protocol, its key elements, and offer practical tips and hints. Additionally, there is a selection of sample practices implemented within higher education and research organizations as a source of inspiration for the users. Lastly, a set of capacity building materials has been designed for trainers and change agents on various topics, such as bystander intervention, webinars addressed to students and teachers, and many more. Each training, again, if we zoom in, you will see that includes a set of documents ready to be used, such as scripts, presentation slides, the training approach, preparation guidance, the case stories, persona stories, and so on. And some of these materials are also available in more than one languages. Lastly, it was also presented before, therefore I will not extend much on this. We have the set of resources, under the set of resources is the set of recommendations or focused fact sheets addressed to 6 distinct stakeholder groups. And having said that, this is the brief presentation of the toolkit. Of course, we remain at your disposal if you have any more questions about it, but I hope we inspire you to navigate more in this toolkit. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Panagiota, for this brief presentation of the UniSAFE Toolkit, and we hope that you will have time to navigate and explore more about what there is online. So before we move to the panel discussion, and as we would like this session to be more interactive, we are going to ask you to have your phones ready and join us on Slido. This is the code that we will be using. We have a live poll with 3 questions for you. That will be more or less the questions that our panelists will answer later on. So I will try, and I hope that the technology will function. Let's see.
Has everyone had time to see the code?
This is the code. It's coming up. Okay. Before we launch the poll, I hope that you will all have the time to join. I don't know if you can scan the code because you are a bit far, but if not, you can just use the number here. Okay, I will just activate the poll with the first question, which is, where does your institution stand in addressing gender-based violence? So let's wait for a few moments before we move on to the next question. Okay, perfect. I see that you are already voting for that one. I will move on with the second question, as I see it for the first, that 54 people have already voted. Yes. What's the main challenge in addressing gender-based violence at your institution? Yes, you can only choose one, unfortunately. Yeah, we can. Yeah, I can see the numbers. 44. Before we move on to the next. Okay. And our last question is, would your institution commit to actions to address gender-based violence by signing a pledge? Okay, perfect. There are a lot of... I will just visualize the results for the first one. And in where does your institution stand? The first one is reasonable developed policy framework with room for improvement, which is great. There is also some slow progress in policy development, and it follows by the isolated initiatives. There are some institutions that have nothing in place, so everything shows that there is room for improvement. And then there are less institutions with robust and comprehensive framework with clear responsibilities and budget, while a robust and comprehensive framework with long-term budget, clear responsibilities and monitoring and evaluation is the last one. Oops, I zoomed up. Okay. About the main challenges, I heard that you wanted to vote for more options, but the first one is insufficient resources. Then following the lack of recognition of the problem, and lack of leadership and commitment, with lack of data and research to inform policies, legal or regulatory obstacles following, and then the final ones is lack of capacity building and training, lack of expertise, concerns about reputational damage, and I guess the other one is other, that I cannot see right now, but you can find more information after the conference and on UniSAFE Toolkit about all the challenges that you're facing, and hopefully from a panel discussion. And then about the pledge, you are positive that your institution will be willing to sign and commit to a pledge. And there are people that don't know, while there are a few responses in no. And this being said, I will call my colleague Panagiota now.
So following this poll, now that we got the opportunity to reflect on where we stand and what challenges perhaps we face when it comes to the implementation of practices addressing this topic, we have three guests with us, each one of them experienced in institutions and research performing organizations which have been working in addressing this topic faced by many challenges, but also with a lot of practical advice and lessons learned that are here to share with all of you in an effort to spread their knowledge and awareness. I will call now the three panelists to please join us here. Vasia and I will be co-moderating, so we will introduce them properly while sitting. So we will have the microphones with us. Okay. So
There is.
let me turn off mine. Perfect. Can you hear us well? Yes. Yes, perfect. So I will pass the mic once in turn. Allow me first to introduce each one of you.
Use the microphone for the online participants.
But I have this on? I have this on? Yes. So I think if they don't hear us, please let us know. So, I will start introducing first Pascale, who is sitting next to me. So Pascale Vielle is a professor of law at the University of Louvain, where she teaches law and policy, social policy from a comparative European and international perspective. Gender issues and the ecological transition are at the heart of her reflections, and as early as 1992, she was appointed by the University of Geneva Council to chair a group working on the evaluation of the Geneva Cantonal Law on the promotion of women at university. From 2004 to 2006, she was director at the Belgian Institute for the Equality of Women and Men, a federal agency responsible for supporting victims of discrimination and gender mainstreaming. In these capacities, she supported research and surveys on the situation of women at university and the development of skills and gender studies. She was an active member of the group that carried out the audit of harassment procedures chaired by François-Xavier, who we heard from yesterday, and she will tell us more on this a bit later. Moving on to Jana Podreka. comes from the Department of Sociology at the Faculty of Arts in Ljubljana. Her research focuses on domestic violence, intimate partner homicide, femicide, sexual violence and harassment, and issues related to gender discrimination in society and academia. She has also written several scientific articles on the topic that she covered. She was a member of the project team that developed the gender equality plan at her home faculty, a member of the expert group for the development of the regulations on violence, harassment and abuse at the University of Ljubljana, and a member of the expert group for the creation of a national regulation on combating violence, harassment and abuse in academia under the leadership of the Ministry of Higher Education. And last but not least, François-Xavier Fiévez has been a teacher of English at the University of Namur since 2001. His research of interest includes learners' autonomy, socio-cognitive approaches to learning foreign languages, and narrative practices as a tool to improve academic achievements. In 2022, he was appointed Vice Rector for Social and Student Affairs, including the field of culture and gender policies. His projects include an educational approaches to intercultural and gender issues and the recognition of students' engagement in extracurricular activities. First of all, we would like to thank you all for accepting our invitation. François, thank you also for having us. It's great to be here at your university. As the first round of introduction, so the audience also get an idea of what we will focus today, we'd like to hear a few words from you about the changes and the practices you have been implementing at your institutions. If I may start with François first. François, you have recently implemented a practice that prevents harassment towards students. Can you please walk us through and tell us more about it and how it has been evolved since its implementation? And now I will pass you the microphone. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so we developed an online form that we call phare. So phare we translate in English as lighthouse. But of course we're losing the acronym if we translate it into English. So phare is the acronym for Protection Against Harassment in Students. So we have developed this system because we noticed that nothing was there before for students harassed in our university. So when I'm talking here about students harassment, it's student-student harassment, of course, and also student-teacher harassment sometimes, or member of the staff members. So the thing is, the student can fill in a form online. The form is sent to a contact person who is here with us today. Colleen is there. Colleen gets in touch with the student, try to understand what happened, and then redirect the students towards me. I am the vice rector in charge of discipline at UNAMUR, so we have a code of discipline, we have regulations that are set to prevent harassment, among others. We can redirect the students toward psychological services as well if they need help. We have an internal psychological service here at the UNAMUR, and we try to provide students with a better understanding of the situation and provide them with tools to manage the situation. So it can be various things. It can go from mediation to really punishment. It has happened to me many times to go and meet the students and say, okay, you've made a mistake and you're going to be punished for that because you don't harass people, basically. So that's how it works. That was the first wave. And then we realized that the form was not known by students. They didn't know it existed. So we have developed a network of contact people in the different faculties. So in the different faculties, we all have a sticker on our door saying, if you want more information about FAR, you can come and contact us. Or if you are a little bit lost and you don't know what to do, you can contact your faculty members. The University of Namur is, the students are really attached to their faculty. So it was easier sometimes to go and find someone you know because he or she is a teacher, or because it's a secretary and you know this person because you see her every day. So we have developed this network of people, and we are going to train those people in terms of helping the students, being able to provide a secure environment where people express themselves, and also, and that's the major issue, and maybe we can discuss that later, is being able to recognize a situation in which someone is harassed, because that's the main problem. The first question a student asks is, am I right in thinking that this is a completely inadequate situation and that I can complain about that? So that's basically it.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for sharing, and indeed we'll get back to more details on that. And I will move on to Jana.
Jasna, just to correct you. Jasna.
Jasna, I'm so sorry. No. Apologies for this. It was my notes. Jasna, I'm sorry.
Don't worry.
So you have recently realized the shortcomings of regulation addressing the topic of gender-based violence after you had some high-profile cases at your faculty, your university. Can you please tell us what changes and practices came after this?
Yes, thank you. Hi, everybody. Yes, I will go a little bit in the context of the University of Ljubljana just to understand what was the changes and when it started. Just to let you know, the University of Ljubljana is the oldest and the largest university in Slovenia. It has more than 38,000 students, 23 faculties, more than 6,000 employees, which is big for Slovenia. We are a very small country. But we started addressing gender-based violence and sexual harassment only very systematically and very deeply only 4 years ago. So, and why only 4 years ago? As you said, because 4 years ago, University of Ljubljana was marked by some high-profile cases of sexual harassment and sexual violence at 2 faculties. And one of these cases happens at our faculties, and one of the victims spoke out on the national television. So after that, of course, this doesn't mean that the cases of sexual violence was not present even before, but the case was that it was hidden, we didn't talk about. There were students who warned about the problem, but they weren't heard because there were no official complaints. And after these cases in particular, so these cases in particular demonstrated that this area actually at our university is very poorly regulated, and there are no adequate institutional guidelines and mechanisms for actively addressing the issue and the problem in academic environment. And so we began a small group of people at the university who are also researching the problem and engage more in these problems. We start to warn the university leadership and the broader actually academic society about the shortcoming of regulation that were in place at that time. And what we pointed out is at the time that the regulation of this area is not a direct reflection of criminal legislations, but rather the establishment of a clear internal rules for determine what is the acceptable behavior in the university environment, and that we need very clear guidelines to addressing the problem. So after that, so many very important changes were made at different levels, at faculty levels, university level, and also national levels. One of the first change was at our university. After that, we adopted guidelines for the prevention of sexual harassment and other forms of harassment, mobbing, and violence at our faculty. And after that, we also revised the existing policy for the protection of dignity, which was in place at the University of Ljubljana. And actually, we found that this document was too broad, poorly designed, and was not providing enough guidance for prosecuting the cases for the university. So after that, we created a new policy at the university, which tackles the problem of violence, harassment, and mobbing, specifically for this problem, and more precisely and more systematically. We also established a system of confidential and trusted persons. Today, every member of the University of Ljubljana, every faculty, has at least one person of trust who is specially trained to help victims of violence, for seeking help and report violence. The university also established a system of regular training, mentoring, and supervision for confidential staff. And the university, there is also an active psychosocial counseling center for students which operate from 2020. Soon after all our activities, also the Ministry of Higher Education and Innovation launched a targeted research project to find out how this area is systematically regulated in the academic field in the whole Slovenian academic society. This project was led by our research group at the Faculty of Arts, led by Professor Milica Antić-Kaber, and I was also one of the researchers. And as a result of this project, we summarized our findings and recommendations in a handbook entitled No Entry for Sexual Violence and Harassment. This handbook is intended for all institutions that have to create or amend their rules and documents in this area. We actually find that most of the institutions or don't have any regulation, or that regulations that are in place are not well designed. And also what was very important at the national level, last year the government of higher education amended the Higher Education Act and added a special article that specifically addressed the protection of students from all forms of harassment, violence, and abuse. Because we found that until this change, students were not actually protected from the Slovenian from all forms of violence and harassment in the academic environment by Slovenian civil law. And we also found that students are almost completely left out of the rules and protocols of the university in Slovenia. Also the last one, very important, as you already mentioned, after that the Ministry of Education, of Higher Education, is currently preparing an overreaching national regulation that will require all private and public universities and faculties either to adopt existing regulations if they are not well formulated, or to adopt such regulations if they don't have yet they don't yet have them. And the basis for this policy is the handbook I mentioned. So these are the main changes.
Well, thank you. Thanks a lot for giving us also the local and national context to have a better idea of the status. We will get back to more specific elements, and allow me to go now to Pascale. Thank you so much for being with us. You recently carried out at your institution, at your university, the audit of procedures. Would you tell us more about what this procedure includes, what this is about, and what it mandates?
Yes, maybe I should say a word about the context in which we decided to set up this committee. The authorities. There are many common features with the other university. Actually, over the last 10 years or so, we started at the UC Louvain to develop gender equality plans, but mainly under the pressure of the Walloon region, to say, and the public authorities, and of the EU, the Horizon programs, and so on. So, actually, these gender equality plans, they did not really reflect an integrated vision of the promotion of equality, and the ambition were fairly modest, I would say, even though they helped to set up teaching programs in gender studies, for instance, and in 2019, the setup of a small support unit for students who were victims of harassment. So that was a very... and in reality, in the reports of activity from the gender point of view, most of the initiatives emanate from the university community and are even not really supported by the authorities. And unsurprisingly, I would say the results of the 1921 gender report were not very good and even reflected a slowdown of the progress for instance, for the career of academic women. At the same time, in 2022, the Me Too movement spread into many spheres, and for the first time at Louvain, early 2022, conflict situations related to harassment, sexual harassment, were being exported, or gender harassment, were being exported to the media on the one hand and to the labor courts on the other. And internally, some informal groups were concerned about the lack of a concrete and clear response from the authorities. And in addition to the individual court cases, a public prosecutor specializing in labor matters opened an investigation against UST Louvain as an employer for default of prevention in harassment. And this was really like an earthquake for my university, whose authorities did not really see themselves as employers, subject to ordinary labor law like any other employer. And for several weeks, the whole rectoral team was like paralyzed by the mediatization of the affairs, and clearly they did not know what to do and how and where to start. So this is really the context. And at that moment, the rector took several initiatives. A campaign to raise awareness of sexual harassment among students, compulsory training for all line managers. We talk about 1,200 people, which is a lot. I won't list, and it set up this audit committee under the chair of François-Xavier. There are other initiatives I want. The mandate was to undertake a comprehensive analysis of UC Louvain's current arrangements for combating harassment and gender-based violence, and to formulate concrete proposals for improvement, including with a view to the adaptation of procedure and regulations by the bodies concerned. So I was member of this committee, as you said, and the committee worked on the basis of documents that it gathered, but it was sometimes very difficult to get this document, or because the data didn't exist, or because it was difficult to get them. We made 41 hearings, and we met 70 times between April 22 and May 23. It was an enormous work, and we have analyzed the structural causes of gender-based violence, including in the specific context of UC Louvain, and then we analyzed the regulation, procedure, and practices in terms of prevention, support to victims, and repression of perpetrators. And we did that in the light of international, European, and national law, and we concluded with almost 150 concrete and all-important recommendations which give an idea of the extent of the lack of solution for the victims. So I may talk later on about some highlights of the findings, if you want.
We'll have to hear that more. I'll pass it on to Vasia, and we'll come back on.
Thank you very much for sharing all that. And it's quite important for us to better understand the challenges in designing the policies, because sometimes you are starting because there is a certain challenge in the university or because there is a certain case that has been going on, but we would like to understand what is the challenges in designing and implementing the policies, and also to hear more about any lessons that you learned throughout the process. So I will start with the same round with the fair. And François, would you like to let us know more about the challenges that you face during implementing this fair structure at the university, and any lessons that you learned and that you would like to share?
I would say that the university, staff members, authorities are very supportive of gender policies. We were the first university in Belgium whose rector was a woman, was elected a woman. So that was a huge sign of acceptance. I would say that also the size of our university allows us to know each other well. And so whenever we want to apply a policy, it's very easy to go and meet people, not just send, the text of the policy and say, okay, apply it now, but really get in the thing. So that was not a big challenge. I would say the big challenge would be around, as I said earlier, the definition of the concepts. So what is harassment? Where does that start? Where does humor and harassment begins? So we have, I think, the biggest aspect here is on prevention. So really trying to explain to people that concepts must be defined, and we have to agree on what we do. So that's what we are busy doing right now. So we have a lot of, we develop policies, we've done things, but we now realize that we need to go further in shaping a little bit the concept in more concrete terms. So that's a huge challenge, because every time I discuss with a student who is accused of harassment, I never meet any evil people. I mean, they were not, the harassment was not intentional. They are mostly surprised by the fact that this is unacceptable, or that the person is upset by the behavior. So the biggest work to me is on prevention, and that's really the main challenge, is how to educate so many students around those issues.
Thank you. Yes, I would agree. Prevention is the answer, and not just for students. Educate also teachers and employees to recognize in the very beginning the violence or what is going on, to speak out. For me, one of the biggest challenges now is, we are talking a lot about it. I'm also a confidential person, so I'm working with victims, and it's the question how we can ensure a system which it is not the victim who leaves the institution, but the perpetrator. Because we still, unfortunately, see a lot of, we faced a lot of cases where at the end of the day, the person who experienced violence ends up of deciding to leave this environment, because she or he felt that the institution do not protect her or him enough. This is, I think, the cases where the university does not act decisively enough when it comes to some cases of violence, especially when the perpetrator is a prominent member of the institutions. There seems to be a culture of double standards, where the institution weighs up what condemning a prominent member would mean for its reputation. And of course, we still face this androcentric culture of trivializing violence and missing the severity and misjudging the severity of violence, especially when it comes to violence against women and sexual harassment. We see that a lot of people at the university misjudge the sexual harassment, also this subtle form of violence. So the big challenge that we are facing now is to raising awareness, especially to our leadership, that they are aware that changing rules and law is not enough, that our work just begins now. Of course, according to what I said, the key question is now how to change this institutional culture that is more receptive for all forms of harassment and violence, and where people, especially younger people like students, dare to speak out and report violence. We still see that so many students don't speak out. We made a survey and we found that only less than 10% of victims report the violence. We also found, what is also challenging, that the violence that are experienced employees and students are different, that employees are experiencing more mobbing. Among students, the most prevalent forms of violence that they experience in the academic environment was sexual harassment and violence perpetrated by full professors. So we see that this is a very problematic relationship where these power relations are very, very strong. That's why we are now working very systematically on ensure regular education and raising awareness regarding the issue of violence and harassment and all kind of violence. Also raising awareness or recognizes the differences between what means conflict and what means violence. Because we still want to have these solutions when to have mediations, but we said if it's violence, mediation, and try to have an agreement between victims and the perpetrators is not okay. So to recognize the importance of these different kind of behavior. What is very important also now for us is this, I call it leadership challenges. Why? As I mentioned so many changes that we were able to make, but I am sure that we were able to make these changes only because we have, at that time, leadership who was very sensitive for this question, and they support all our initiatives. They were both men, our dean and our rector. Now we also have a leadership who is very sensitive and supportive, but we don't know what will happen if we will have a dean who is not that sensitive, more androcentric, who has no feelings for this problem. So all these changes that we made are not safe, I would say, like this, because it's very dependent. So how to address leadership because of course, as all you know, for the universities and faculties, leadership changes every 4 years. So how ensure the sustainability of the changes made? And also I would like to maybe end with this question. One of the questions, it's very, what we are talking about a lot, is the question of, or the issue of alternative sanctions. Because when we are talking of cases of sexual harassment, what we are thinking is, okay, the only sanction is that this person who is the perpetrator must be sanctioned in the worst way to lose their job and stuff like this. But most of the cases, or there are no official complaints, but we know that it's going on. So how to protect the victims in cases where there are no official complaints, or where the sanction is not that severe that the perpetrator will lose their job. So the victim and the perpetrator stay in the institution, and how to protect the victim in the way that, okay, they are both in the same institution, but still we can do something, and what we can do in these cases. Now we are preparing a list of alternative sanctions, to be aware of the perpetrator and in the same time to protect the victim. So maybe I will stop here. And there are so many other challenges, but maybe in the discussion.
I find this pragmatic approach very interesting. Actually, I may agree with the fact that prevention is important, but only if you consider that punishment is part of the prevention. Because the general tendency in our university is for the perpetrator to go unpunished. And I think that this will undoubtedly be one of the aspects that will be addressed by in the criminal proceeding underway at the labor court. So really, it remains a problem even after our report at UC Louvain. Another problem is that at UC Louvain, there is a resistance on the part of the authorities to tackling the continuum of violences from a gender perspective. They agree to see it in terms of equity, inclusion, diversity, whatever, but gender equality, it's really difficult, it remains difficult, and that means that to tackle the deep roots of the problem, it's going to be difficult because they are supposed to promote gender equality, and this is one of the elements of a solution of gender-based violence, of course. And if they don't do that, effectively, it won't work. Some points we have highlighted in the report, and that might be interesting, and I will really briefly sketch them. There is an enormous complexity of the legal and policy framework with a superposition of labor law, criminal law, education law, anti-discrimination law, disciplinary law, and they interact and conflict sometimes. And it asks for a very acute competence at the highest level, legal competence, but also it may reach a point where it's not efficient anymore. And I wouldn't plea for adding more policies, but rather to reinforce the effectivity assessment in general. This is the most important for me. Also, and this is, I think, a common feature of many universities, the university world is characterized by the superimposition of legal social consultation bodies with social partners and so on, and academic decision-making bodies. And they sometimes have competencies on the same areas, and they don't cooperate, and the procedure coexist, and people don't know anymore where to go. And this is really something that has to be solved, because universities are very old institutions with corporatist governance systems, and they will remain, I'm sure, but how to interact with social partners for these kind of problems. There is also a problem of scale. Many universities have become too big, and the central site, they don't know how it works in the peripheral sites, and peripheral sites don't know the culture of the central site, and sometimes the central university take new decisions of policies and even don't inform peripheral sites. So this is an enormous problem. Very difficult also to identify in my university who the hierarchical superior is. So we have a hierarchical superior for research, another one for teaching, and who should you refer to if there is a problem? How should you tackle the thing? And also, who is in charge of gender and harassment issues? Only in the rectoral team, I think that 4 or 5 people are in charge of various aspects, and there is no integrated policies. And more that, there is this problem I just mentioned about the trust persons appointed by because of the law asks for trust persons in your universities, on the one hand, and this is labor law, and on the other hand, focal point where you can go, and which is organized by a university. So people don't know where to go, and I think this has to be solved. And this is one of the points of the report where I think we are going to improve the things at the UC Louvain. Thank you.
I just want maybe to come back on the punishment issue. Well, hello, I'm a teacher. So I'm always in for meaningful punishment, especially with students. So I'm not a judge in a court of law. So if at some point you have to resort to a judge, lawyers, do it. But my purpose, when I have a student who has committed something wrong, my point is that he or she never does that again. So I have punished so many people in the last year, and I have thought so hard about each time giving a meaningful punishment to them, which is most of the time, go and train yourself, go 2 days, go with specialists, think about the subject, think about the issue, and then you come back to me, you write a reflection text in which you now explain, now that you are rereading the situation, what would be the conclusions you would draw and how are you going to behave next time. And it has turned out to be more effective than simply saying you're expelled or I don't know, you are expelled for 2 weeks, you're expelled for the year, you're expelled this and that, because that doesn't make people understand why they were wrong, they're just punished. So that might be a challenge as well, to provide meaningful punishments, because sometimes it's not understood by people around you. They want people to get punished, like hang them on the public place because it will be an example for everyone. And it says, no, sorry, I don't do that. I mean, that's not the point. So so that's interesting to think about those different punishments.
I just react to that because it's not what I was saying. I'm not the one thinking that hang them on the public place. Not at all, actually. But at the same time, the sense of impunity is really widespread, and this doesn't help at all to tackle the problem. That's one thing. The other thing is that you're talking about students, and as a teacher myself, I fully understand what you say, but. I am also talking about the people that are employed by the university when they arrest each other. And as an employer, the university has the duty to exert a disciplinary power and to remedy the problem also by punishment, I think.
And yes, I was educated at UC Louvain, and nobody was ever hanged on public places. Let's make things clear.
Thank you. Thank you for these interesting reactions to the challenges that you're facing in your institutions. And of course, prosecution and prevention and protection. You have mentioned all the different pieces that are in the UniSAFE Toolkit and the approach that we're having in UniSAFE. So because we would like to accept questions from the audience and have enough time for reflections, I would like to ask you one final question. So if you have like a key takeaway or a very practical tip for another institutions, what would that be? What would you like to share? So who would like to start?
I would say identify the people in charge, have people who are in charge of it. Either, I'm really happy actually in my case about the collaboration between authority or an authority like me who is more into the policy making and thinking about the general principles that will apply to university, and have someone with whom I work who's whose job is to work on gender-specific issues and have this collaboration, and we are identified as reference people for those issues. So every time something comes up, we are contacted. And then involve people around you. They are probably teachers, academics, students as well, who are interested in those issues. And create this kind of group of people who will help you improve the situation. So that's what my message. It's collaboration. Collaborate with people who are really, really interested in the issue, and then that's it.
Yes, I would agree completely, because my tip was build a community. It's actually for being successful in cases of violence, it's crucial not to be alone. We, for example, designed this community of trusted confidential persons, and these people are from all faculties with no backgrounds in working on violence. So there are professors from, I don't know, STEM universities, from very different places. And when they are coming to trainings, they are also becoming more sensitive, and the community is growing. We saw that this is very, very important to find people that are thinking in the same way, that they are recognizing the problem, they are pushing their leadership at each faculties, and they are also speaking in everyday situations, because one of the challenges is also what I would like to say, when we are when we are talking about the violence, we put the whole pressure to the victim. Speak, make a complaint, otherwise we are powerless, we can't protect you. But it's not true. Actually, we can protect the victim when the community speaks out in everyday situation. When I say to my colleague, this is not okay what you are doing, I am actually preventing violence. But when in everyday situation I'm not reacting to violence, to inappropriate behavior, then I am not protecting the person. So having this community which will be sensitive in everyday interactions, situations, I think is the key. So yeah.
I fully agree with what has been said, and in the toolkit I discovered this training for the side, how do you call it? Side person, side? Bystanders. Sorry. Yes. And I didn't know this approach, and I found it so much interesting, and I think this is something to develop. I was talking about that with one of my French colleagues at the coffee break, but in my institution, I think the biggest problem at the moment is a problem of trust. Many people don't trust anymore the structure, the possibility. They don't think that it's possible to find a solution to their situation. And so I think that transparency, accountability, sincerity in the gender involvement and in the discourse, communication, clear communication are really key points for me. And in this perspective, one thing we have noticed is that many key places where problem may be solved are not places where people are elected, but they are appointed by the authorities. And this is maybe not the right way to proceed. Maybe we should think about elect members of the disciplinary committees, elect trust persons, rather than having them appointed by the authorities, in order to allow people to feel more to trust more the person. That's what there are many things to say, but I think a lot has been said. Thank you.
Thank you, Vasia.
Thank you, Pascale. Back to Vasia. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for all the tips that you shared. So if we reflect back to those, then it's like finding allies and partnerships. It is important because institutional policies should not be like standalone policies, but more people should know. We should raise awareness about what is happening, what it is going on, and also communication and accountability and transparency are important in order to build the trust in the institutions. So, Pan, would you like to take?
Yes. Yes, now we will open the floor to the audience and to the online participants. Allow me to add the slides. Sorry, I'm looking for the slide with the Slido code. Sorry. Yes, so first we can take some questions from our audience here. And we're also inviting the online attendees to add their questions in the Slido. I will turn on now the function. Okay, so do we have any questions? Yes, please. We have one up. If you can stand up and say your question, I will repeat it in the microphone. For the online participants, we said it's easier this way. Please, your title, even though we met already. So just to briefly repeat the question for the online participants, it referred to the trusted network of people created at the university, how these are trained, how they're selected, and to who they are for.
Thank you for your question. The trusted or confidential person, I don't know how is the right word in English, are for all, for students and for staff. The person must be an employed person at the university. For each faculty, this is mandatory by the new rule. So the university, by the new rule, ask each faculty to nominate at least one, but now we are changing to at least two because we see that this is too much work for one person. Of trusted and or confidential person. So they asked, but it's mandatory by the rule. This was the first step. Then after that, you can't be a trusted person if you don't go to the first training, which is guaranteed by and organized by the university. There is a team at the university who are in charge of trainings, mentoring, and supervision for the trusted person. I am also one of the members of this team. And there is a first training for all trusted person. They must go through this first training. And after that, they must go regularly. They can choose mentoring or other kind of trainings that they have. It's of course is not obligatory, but we are checking if every year we are checking how many trainings each trusted person were attended during the year. And they also have this kind of supervision, like it's also, of course, it's not obligatory, but if they have cases, difficult cases, they can go to supervision, talk about that, and it's very, very important. We established this system of different level of education. It's like, as I said, just to sum up, to be more clear, the first are like lectures where they can when they became familiar with the topic. The second one are mentoring, which is more interactive. We are on the mentors groups. We are talking about specific cases. We are discussing their specific issues and stuff like this. And the supervision, where with the specialists, they are going through their I don't know, specific issues, traumas maybe that came with each cases. I answered, or it was something else? Okay, thanks.
Great, thank you. Before moving to the second question from our audience here, I will take one question from the online participants. Are you sharing sanctions to perpetrators with victim survivors or considering their desires when deciding sanctions? Sorry? Are you sharing the sanctions decided with the perpetrators, with victims and survivors, or considering their desires when deciding sanctions? It refers to the sanctions related to whether you are being advised by the perpetrator about what sanctions to enforce. Yeah. So you don't repeat.
So, can I ask for clarification again? So, are we sharing the sanctions with the victim, is it?
Yes, with victim survivors.
Well, actually, this question, we had this question like 2 weeks ago, and actually it goes against protection of personal data. So that's a little bit difficult, but actually the only thing you can do is tell the victim that there is a sanction, that the committee has taken the best sanction possible, but you cannot give the nature of the sanction because then the victim could use it against the perpetrator, and this could come back against her, well, her or him, depending. In this case, it was a girl, but so we decided to not tell the victim what the sanction was, and this was very, very difficult for the victim, obviously. Just because the victim wants to make sure that the sanction is hard enough, given the trauma he or she has gone through. Again, it's educating, it's explaining also to the victim that now he or she has to concentrate on something else, and that the job is the job of a disciplinary committee and things, but that's a very, very difficult. So we asked for a legal advice, and then it was advised to us not to tell the contents of the thing.
No, we have a different practice. Actually, the victim have the right to be informed about the procedure and about the sanction. So if there is an official complaint at the university, the victim received the written explanation of the decision of the committee. So it's informed what is the sanction, and we think it's important. Could be a kind of frustration if there is no any sanctions, but it must be, she must or he must be informed what was going on.
Yeah. Talking about transparency, indeed.
I have no clear answer. There are not many, as I say, sanctions that have been pronounced in my university. But in the report, we were in favor of tackling all the omerta aspects as much as possible. I wonder if there are no other interpretation of the protection of privacy that could be. So I think that deserve more investigation. But without that, the victim at least should be noticed of the sanction, and that there should be a report of the sanction and the nature of the sanction at the end of the year, for instance, with no names of the authors, but that seems to be necessary. And also we had a reflection about what happens if a perpetrator leaves the university and is going to be hired in another university. Should we give the information? We have no clear answer, but we think that the authorities have to think about it and ask for a legal advice about this question, which is very important too.
Yes. Indeed, this is also something that we have referred to yesterday.
Because we were just talking about that, not just to inform the victim, but in an informal and way to inform also the community of the academic community what happened with complaint, not without names, of course, without names, without specific data. But students tell us that would be useful to build this trust in the institution, to know what happened with complaints, what university made at the end of the day with complaints. So now we are thinking how the university will make some kind of reports of the complaints and what happened with all of this. Of course, without any data, without...
Yeah, I agree with that. You have to explain to the victims that there was a procedure, there was punishment, the job was done seriously, taking everything into consideration. But I was many times in a very uncomfortable situation when the victim wants to be a little bit part of the decision as well. Mm-hmm. Like she wants to put the weight on the fact that actually the best punishment would be this or that. But that's not up to them to decide, and that's a little bit difficult to hear, probably. But so that's an difficult area there when we discuss with the victims, because they want to know everything. They want to make sure that they are recognized and things like that. And it's something that we have to work on as well. So, but my limit is always to tell people, I am in charge of the procedure. You are the victim, so you are in charge of yourself and of your well-being right now, and we can help you do that. And I'm telling you, I promise you that everything was done, but there is a step that I don't cross there.
And if I may say, that's why it's the importance of having procedures in place, protocols, official institutionalized documents that outline the steps, so the victims are also aware of what will follow, indeed. So let's take another question from the audience. We also had one question there before. Yes? Yes, please.
Okay, so I would like to maybe build up on this story and to ask about your experiences with the role of media. On one hand, media is really important to raise the awareness, and in many of our universities that the story came into focus after some cases leaked into media. On the other hand, once we establish practices of, the practices of prevention and everything, media are still interested if they find out there are some cases. Of course, we need to protect both the perpetrator or accused person and the victim. But on the other hand, media has an important role, or our faculties and universities build trust by showing that we are addressing the problem, not avoiding it. So where is the line between what should be in media and what not, and how did you ever had that issue, and how did you address in your institutions?
If I may just repeat the question for the online participants, the question referred to the role of media and the double side when it comes to protecting the perpetrators and the victims, but also the importance of having them on your side when it comes to building trust with the wider community, because you're being held accountable. And yes, please.
We had a case with race-based violence. I think the first important thing is at the University of Namur, we try to create trust with the media as well. So we have this kind of arrangement that whenever something happens, we want to be contacted in order to give our version of things. So the story was racist comments in the middle of a class, thanks to that kind of a Slido. We have another name for that. So racist comments appeared on the screen. So, of course, we tackled the problem inside the university, but the story went out to the media, and so the question was, are the students of the University of Namur racists? The thing that you do is, I personally don't have a problem with that kind of issue coming out in the media, simply because we have so many procedures and so many actions that we take to counter that. So that was the occasion to explain to people outside that a university is not simply a place where people learn content-based stuff, but also they are becoming the adults of tomorrow. So obviously we have to face problems of race, problems of discrimination, problems of this. And the role of the university is also to help students go through that as well. So I found that an interesting way of making a point about the role of the university in that kind of case. So building the trust with the media and being able to answer to the concern by saying we have solutions, we have things, we are not stupid. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for these questions, because this is always a big question, the role of the media. And of course, in Slovenia, the two cases that I was talking about at the beginning, both were very mediatically spread all over the Slovenian society. All of the newspapers, televisions talk about these two cases. Why? Because in both cases, the perpetrators, there were two very well-known professors who were also public persons, active in politics spheres and stuff like that. So, but what happened is always, we were talking, there was the problem of this kind of reporting is there is also a big backlash. There were, of course, some media who were in favor of the victim and tried to be very specific or not to go into deep and trivialize the situation. But there was a lot of reporting where there was a lot of victim blaming, talking about the victims who are just looking for publicity and stuff like that, as you probably know the stories behind me too, and it was the same case. So what we are now working, when we are working and talking with media, we are always saying not to focus on specific cases. I'm working with victims also in different spheres, and a lot of journalists came to us and asked us, do you have a victim who will speak about on the television? And we actually suggest to the victim, don't go there. Don't expose yourself, because there will always be a backlash and will be may this be a trauma for you. Only if the victim is very strong and we can see that she or he can speak and that this will not cause any additional trauma to her or him. But at the end of the day, for us, the role of the media is really to build on the positive changes and to inform the community what the institutions done, what are the rights for the victims, what that the institution, the University, for example, of Ljubljana, takes the problem seriously, that in both of these cases, the persons were sanctioned. So I think the media must build their information on positive changes, using specific cases very carefully, and be aware that each specific case has these political issues in the background. So yeah, we are now working a lot of this, how to communicate with media, and also, as I said, how to communicate with media about the cases we had at the university, but in an appropriate way, to give this positive message without any specific impersonal data and using media for building the trust in the institution. But it's a big issue.
Yeah, I'm not at my ease to say something because I'm not in charge of the communication of the university. It's a very personal consideration. I noticed that maybe because the problem arose in the media because of a whistleblower who was a very famous professor in my university, and it made the university a bit, it's difficult how to react. There is a lack of anticipation and of reactivity at the same time, and they have to build a real policy of communication with the media, focusing on positive initiatives. And to give an example, the audit report was not made public until a few weeks ago, although it has been issued in June. So it's a pity because that was a positive initiative. And it was extremely complicated. We could not give it to anybody outside of the university. And I think there was a leak in the media. At one moment, there was a small something on the public radio. And instead of taking it and going in front of the public and say, yes, we did that and we are proud of it, it was a very silent reaction. Nothing happened. So it's a pity. It's just a pity, a missed opportunity, I think. That's a very personal consideration. I'm not sure it's shared by my colleagues or university.
Thanks a lot. We'll take one more question from online participants. Thanks a lot for sending your comments and questions, and then we'll take one final if the audience has one. So how do you handle the conflict of interest in appointing a selected person that is also a member of staff at the university? Has this been a case for you so far? So from the appointed persons that I assume they're coming outside from the organization, in case they are staff from the organization, how do we handle this conflict?
Which person?
Appointing person, but I assume it refers to the committees. Sorry.
For example, when the perpetrator is the dean or the...
No. I think it refers to appointing persons when it comes to committees of prosecution, if I understood correctly, because we were talking about members of committee. Who's in charge of addressing? Yes.
Well, at the University of Ljubljana, the committee who is in charge of the prosecution at the university, it's not a fixed committee. We established a committee for each case from the pool of a very large person who are nominated by the faculties. Okay. So there are 3 members committee. One member must be from the faculty where the violence happened, and the 2 others from 2 other faculties. So this is the question. Would you have?
We had a clarification, actually.
Okay.
It refers to the trusted person. So it came up to the point when we were talking about the trusted persons.
Okay.
So the persons the students go to report to.
Okay. The trusted person. We always said when the victim is too close to the trusted person, you can go to another one. And also we have this system that you can go to the trusted person to each faculty. You don't need to go to the trusted person at your faculty because some faculties in Slovenia are very small. Mm-hmm. So if you are a victim, you can go to the trusted person at each faculty of the University of Ljubljana. That's how we try to go through this.
Thanks for the clarification.
We also have trusted persons here, and first they have a 5-day training program and then supervision and things. So they are really trained to do that task, and also they have procedures for how they report the way. So first they can get in touch with the most meaningful people in the university in order to sort out that problem. So I don't think that when you go and complain about someone, the trusted person is not going to contact that someone saying someone has a problem with you and we should solve it. So I think she could contact, I don't know, the director of the human resource department or a member of the rector team or someone external as well. We have external services for the protection of work at the University of Namur, so someone who is completely neutral. And this person helps the victim find a way through the institution to get the message across and things like that. So I think it's really, really a very, very structured procedure. And this person does not work as a mediator. The charge of the person is not to solve the problem, is to really find a way in the institution to get in touch with the right people who have answers to the different questions and who will probably help the person build the way through the complaints.
Quickly add something, because it's the same in Ljubljana, but there is a lot of people are afraid to, because we are all colleagues. So there is, some people had this issue, if I go to this professor, he's a very close colleague to the perpetrator, if I can trust to him or her. That's why we build this larger community. So.
Pascale.
Yes, actually in Belgium, I don't know how it is for other countries, but there are trust persons under, it's a duty under labor law. So it's a legal duty, and it's only for employees of the university, not for the students. So we should think about another system for the students. And the law says that the employer has to appoint several trust persons, but it doesn't say how you choose those persons. And this is why I was saying when I presented the question earlier, that it is important maybe to think about the election of these persons, because in my university, I don't know how it is in others, but we in the hearings, we noticed that it is not successful. Very few people go to those trust persons, and people think it won't work. They cannot trust. So it's really a point of attention, and we should think about in other ways to appoint those people, maybe elect them by categories of persons in the university. I don't know. It is to reinvent.
Thank you. Thank you both. Any other questions from the audience? I'm sorry, couldn't keep track who was first. Okay, we go up and then we come here to Marina. Sorry? Yes, please. Your question? Yes, and please introduce yourself as well.
I forgot before.
Yes.
I'm sorry. So my name is George. I'm from Portugal, and I'm a member of the European Network of Homeless Persons in Higher Education. My question is, would it be necessary to implement good practices to tackle the issue of gender-based violence in institutions, higher education institutions, and research institutions? Would be needed hierarchical change in the structure, or that would be required to implement easily this, the needs, the policies, and the good practices to tackle this issue?
I'm not sure I understood precisely the question.
So, would to implement the policies and also the good practices to tackle the issue of gender-based violence would be needed a change in the hierarchical structure of the organizations?
Okay, so to implement policies and practices to address this topic, would it be needed to have hierarchical changes of the organization? Yes. Perfect.
We have the habit of referring to lasagna in our university. So lasagna means that if you look at how the university is structured, you have all those layers. of people at different levels, which implies that everything you do as an individual is cross-checked by other people with coming from different bodies of power. Even the rector, even the rector's action are cross-checked by people from the different bodies of the university, by the students as well. Students have a word. They have in Belgian universities, the government asks for a heavy student representation in all bodies of the university. So I wouldn't change the lasagna because, hey, lasagna is good. But I would definitely add more flavor to the tomato sauce by bringing up more subjects coming from policies rather than everyday acts that we're trying to solve and that we're trying to discuss. Sometimes we lack this kind of distant approach that would say, okay, and then for the whole university, this would mean a policy like this or like that. So that's what I would do. I would keep the pasta, change the sauce.
Yeah, I agree completely. Because there will be always a hierarchical structure. We can change this, actually. But what we can do, of course, the institutional culture in the academic area, it's very rigid, it's very androcentric. There is a lot of what Villana explains very well in her presentation, what's the problem of power relations and stuff like this. And also, when we talked about trusted persons, I think this system is very good for students because in this way they come closer to professors who are at the hierarchical level, distant from them, and they are afraid going to there and talk to them. So, yeah, I would agree that we need to change, if I connect institutional culture with source. Here we have to build or to put the effort to change mindsets, which are very strong, a specific mindset, which is very strong in the academic sphere. So, yeah.
Yes, I fully agree. Actually, we are at l'Université de Louvain, we are in a particular moment because it's the end of the rectorate and we have to appoint a new rector, so there will be an election. Because of all what happened, many things have been set up in the very last weeks and months, but we are not sure that it's going to have effects after September. And for instance, we have two academic women appointed delegate to the rectorate, counselor to the rectorate for gender equality and diversity, and they have made a big week of inclusion, diversity and equity, which was very successful and helped to make visible a lot of resources and problems. So what are we going to do with all that now that we are arrived at the end of the mandate? And I think we have to take all these resources and put them in the campaign and make of that a major topic of the campaign in order to engage the further rector on the things and to build on what has been started now. So it's a question of culture and of politics, not policies.
Indeed. So we'll take one more question from the audience. Marina? Marina, please tell us your title as well.
Reasonably unaware of the situation. And and that they can be sent, maybe this is framed as the punishment or part of the punishment to a program. So I was curious to know if these programs are the general training programs or there are specific perpetrator programs, if these are organized by the university or other services, and if you had the chance to observe some impact, some effect, if you consider this effective, what kind of things, and what kind of impact do you expect and do you observe?
So just to repeat the question briefly for the online participants, this refers to the example that François gave before when it comes to perpetrators being surprised that they were being accused of a case. So the question refers to whether these programs are general programs on this topic and who they are organized from, and if you have observed an impact after perpetrators had to follow them.
So this starts with the meeting with the perpetrator, with the disciplinary committee. We try to understand the situation. Where did it come from? So based on that, we try to help the student choose the best training program possible. Can be alcohol consumption, because the problem was alcohol, the consumption of alcohol, which completely has an effect on the person. It can be, let me think what we have decided. It can be really discrimination programs, so people who are unaware of discriminatory behaviors. So we have a whole bunch of possible subjects that we choose with the students, so we try to make it as meaningful as possible, as I said. We had one on the MBTI approach as well, because we realized that the main problem of the perpetrator was empathy. So it was unable to think as the person in front. So he did not understand why the person was so shocked and was so upset. It was just a joke. And so we asked him to work on that program. So it can be various things. We always ask them to go to this training program, and then I see them again after, because I want them to apply some reflexivity skills. So, because that's my thing, basically. So we ask them to write a document in which they revisit the problem and try to give solutions to the problem they encountered and perspectives for the future. So next time they are in a similar situation, the behavior has to change, and this is how it's going to change. Students always come back happy from those trainings. First, because they've learned things, they have realized things. It's punishment, but not that much, because it helps them become better people, and that's what we ask them to be. So this is something that is successful in students. So we often give them the chance, because they have the opportunity to not agree with the sanction and decide on the worse punishment, like being expelled for 2 weeks, and then that's it, that's finished. So we give them the choice. You have a lighter punishment with a training program, with a task you will be busy with during the whole year, basically, or you are expelled for 2 weeks and that's it. They never choose the hardest one. They always go for the training one. So yes, that's quite successful with this. And now we're starting to have contact with external associations, so we can send them to them, and they know the reality of the university, and they can adapt the training or have this special eye on the students, so, because they know why he or she is there, and come back with that. So we try to improve the students. Yeah.
So having said that, we will conclude this panel discussion. François, Jasna, Pascale, thank you so much for your presence and for this insightful conversation. Of course, we can talk about this for hours. We'll have a lunch following up, so we will do that. So please, a round of applause for our speakers. And we will now move to the last shorter part of this session. And as we mentioned before, The awareness raising guide is part of this toolkit, and talking a lot about prevention and the importance of raising awareness, Vasia and Madesi will tell us more about this guide, and then we will conclude.
Thank you so much. It will be like a very short presentation because my empathy says that you will all would like to go for lunch. So last but not least, we would like to introduce to you the step-by-step guide to awareness raising campaign, which was developed in the framework of the UniSAFE Toolkit. So awareness raising campaigns, as we already stated during the panel discussions, are an important component of preventing gender-based violence in higher education, institutions and research-performing organizations. So these campaigns educate staff and students, increase the understanding of the issue, and create a culture of understanding, respect and equality in order to promote a safe environment in the institutions. So awareness-raising campaigns can take many forms, such as social media campaigns, such as workshops, seminars and events dedicated to a certain topic. They can be like radio and television broadcasts, competitions and challenges, exhibitions and displays, and more. So our step-by-step guide was actually inspired by the poster campaign, which was introduced and implemented in the University of Namur in order to raise awareness about gender-based violence, the different forms that it can take among students, and also to promote the fair structure that François spoke about. So our step-by-step guide that we invite you to go and check out on the UniSAFE Toolkit and the outputs on our website is a practical roadmap that was inspired by that, and it is tailored for those that want to organize a successful awareness-raising campaign in their institution. So it's we hope that it is a valuable resource, and it is especially designed for communication officers, gender equality and diversity officers, or any staff interested in implementing that. So moving on, I will briefly explain the different steps and the dynamic phases that we propose with this guide, which are three. It's create, launch and evaluate. So in the create phase, we start from the seed of an idea and nurture it into a comprehensive strategy. Involving allies and actors to ensure the effectiveness. Then we go to the launch phase, which is where the campaign takes flight and it's really implemented. And finally, the evaluate phase, where we go into the impact, the use of metrics, where we refine and enhance any future campaigns, or we try to seamlessly integrate this process into our overall institutional planning on addressing gender-based violence. So this cycle ensures not just the creation of an impactful campaign, but also it's a continuous learning process inside the institution, because it helps us shape the landscape of the collective efforts against gender-based violence. So I will go briefly through the different steps and focusing on the creation phase, which is important and it takes some time. It is very and highly recommended. It is important to establish a solid foundation, and it all begins with finding allies and setting up a working group or a team. Because this group or this team will actually become the driving force behind your campaign. So along with the team, you will be able to set the objectives, to develop the clear and compelling messages, to choose all the suitable channels that you want to communicate, and disseminate, you will be able to design, hopefully, an eye-catching and visually appealing and smart campaign. You will be able together to define the time frame, to get approval inside the institutions, and also to think about the impact and take into account intersectionality aspects. The second step is to find ourselves in the second phase, which is the moment where your campaign takes flight. So reaching the intended audience with precision. So how do you achieve this? We propose a few steps like launching a press release or having a high-level event or a conference. We leveraging on word of mouth and partnering with influencers inside your institutions. And of course, don't forget to explore a variety of media channels, both online and offline, to maximize your campaign's impact. Remember that the launch of a campaign is not just about disseminating information, but is also about creating a resonance that lingers in the minds of your audience. And the last step, which we believe it is very important and we are highlighting in the document, the step-by-step guide, is to evaluate your campaign, not just like a checkbox, like ticking the checkbox, but also as a strategic imperative. So we would like to emphasize the importance of collecting both qualitative and quantitative indicators to measure the success. And if you dive into the engagement metrics, you would know about the knowledge gained and any changes in behavior inside the institution. So we recommend also an evaluation report that can serve as a compass for any future endeavors. And also we recommend sharing the results with key stakeholders in the institution and decision makers. And also in this step, you can consider the sustainability of your efforts by incorporating the campaign and any awareness-raising actions into ongoing initiatives or policies in the institutions. And in this step, of course, you should also think about the necessary resources and support you can receive from your institution. Lastly, I don't want to go into the details of this slide, but the guide offers a range of tips, do's and don'ts that we have collected to make your campaign not only effective, but also ethical and compassionate, like including emergency call numbers, psychological support for the victims, survivors, and so on. But also more practical advice like the tone of voice that you will use in your messaging or compelling your messages. A crucial key takeaway is to think that gender-based violence is definitely and undeniably a complex issue. So your campaigns just represents one stride in the broader journey to address gender-based violence. So it's like your campaign is not the conclusion, but it's a continuation of the efforts to address gender-based violence and make sure that you keep the conversation alive in the institution and among its members to make sure that the dialogue about gender-based violence resonates throughout your institution and the policies. And that remember that a campaign impact extends beyond its initial launch. So the guide also presents some inspiring practices that we have collected. We have conducted an interview with the creators of the poster campaigns to raise awareness about sexual harassment in the University of Namur. So you will find information about that, but also a very interesting campaign of the University of Geneva in Switzerland, Don't Turn a Blind Eye, with very interesting posters that you can recreate, and we also offer a template that you can replicate the campaign that was done in the University of Namur in your institutions and based on your needs, of course. Last but not least, before we move on to the lunch break, it's the poster exhibition. You might have already seen it, but outside where we're having the coffee breaks, in the walls there are some posters that you can observe. Some of them represent awareness-raising campaigns that have already taken place in institutions around Europe, and some of them present sister projects. Sister projects and initiatives that we wanted to highlight. So today at 2, after the lunch or while you're having your drink, in front of the posters, the poster owners will stand next to them, and they will make like a very short presentation of providing information and answering questions. The posters will remain up throughout the conference, so you will have the chance to check them out. We would like to encourage you to take pictures and share the messages during the scheduled poster presentation, and also to ask questions to the poster owners. We have also QR codes in each poster and website links that you can explore further. And without further ado, thank you very much for your attention, and we will continue with the lunch break.
A big thanks to the Yellow Window team for organising this very engaging session. And thanks to you, all of you online, for your active participation. It was great to see all the comments there. And just to tell you that we did read all the comments, and we will try to address some later on. For those of you who are in person and dying to eat, you're hungry, well, I have the pleasure of informing you that on the menu we have poke bowls. And if you are vegan, 2 of you have asked for vegan options. Please go and see the lady to ask for your option. Otherwise, all the dairy-free and lactose-free people will be happy because everything is dairy-free and lactose-free. And if you ask for vegetarian options, well, take the vegetarian option. If you did not ask for a vegetarian option, do not take the vegetarian option. And bon appétit!